Shanti. Welcome. Good evening. Can everyone hear on Zoom?
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Shanti.
So we have angels here. You want to say hello to everyone?
Om Shanti.
We have Sanchit Bhai and Manisha Behan, Meher Behan, Sister Nish, and Kajal Behan. Welcome. So do we like today's topic? Guilt consciousness. Yeah, I think in spiritual life, generally, we have a lot of guilt and we accumulate a lot of guilt as well. And that's how we all begin. And today we thought to kind of explore this a little deeper and understand, is it good to have guilt? Is it not good to have guilt? What exactly is it? What are the causes of it? How to, let go of it? Things like that. So if we were to define guilt, how would we define guilt? What is guilt? Anyone? Reflection of a behavior that you might have hurt yourself or others. Good. What else?
कोई ऐसा काम जो हमें करना उस समय तो हमने किया पता नहीं था, बाद में पता पड़ता है कि वो चीजें हमें करना नहीं चाहिए था, ना तो हम किसी को एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं, ना खुद को एक्सेप्ट कर सकते हैं. ये
something that we shouldn't have done, but we did it, and it's difficult to accept it. It's feeling of guilt. Man ko kosna, right? Good. It's like, what do we say in English? Kosna is, yeah, like to really feel self-pity maybe, or resentment towards this. Yeah, why did I do this? Right. Good. Guilt to second guess. What does that mean? To second guess yourself, right? That's guilt, right? What else?
Repeating the same mistake and then feeling guilt.
Repeating the same mistake and then feeling guilty, right? Right. So, we have 5 vices, main vices. Out of those vices, with which vice is guilt linked to, linked with? We have algae, right? We say anger, lust, greed, attachment, and ego. These are the 5 main vices of the soul. So what is it actually linked with closely? The emotion of guilt. Good, yeah. It's
पांचों ही है सौरभ भाई.
हाँ?
पांचों है.
पांचों है. पांचों है. पांचों है, right? Right. It's like we say it is closely linked with, we say anger. So we say guilt is anger directed at ourselves, at what we did or did not do. Resentment is anger directed at others, at what they did or did not do. So if I, start feeling anger towards myself, that becomes a feeling of guilt, an emotion of guilt. So is it healthy or not healthy? Guilt. What will we say?
Very unhealthy.
Very unhealthy. So you shouldn't have guilt. Sometimes, yes. Right. Right. Yes, correct. And that's what, in psychology, studies say that there are positive effects of guilt as well. But then there is a limit to it. And if I keep on, reliving that emotion again and again, then it's not healthy. So a little bit of guilt is actually okay and good, And that's what this quote here says. So there are two kinds of guilt. I say softly, the kind that's a burden and the kind that gives you purpose. So the one that gives me purpose, it's like I have done a mistake, I realize it, then I change myself, I course correct. So that's good to have, right? But the kind that's a burden, it actually I'm thinking, and I'm actually gotten in a state of depression. That's not good, right? Right. And so, what are the positive effects of guilt? Let's see the positive effects of guilt, right? So, studies in psychology show that the feeling of guilt may drive us to engage in positive behaviors. Guilt has been connected to helping behavior. That means that when we feel guilty, we are more likely to help someone else. That's true, right? Guilt might also make us more honest. In one study, it was found that preschool children were more likely to be honest about cheating when they felt guilty than when they felt sad. So guilty allows us to be, or at least, inspires us to be more helpful and more honest that way. So it's okay to have guilt, but then if I keep on, brewing about what has happened and what could have happened, then ultimately it will not be healthy. So if we were to give some examples of guilt, what would be some of the examples of guilt? Yeah, if you were to give examples of guilt, what would be some of the examples of guilt?
When you've said something to someone and then you feel guilty that you shouldn't have said it.
I shouldn't have said it, right? Sometimes it's like that, we tell ourselves, no, I shouldn't tell it, I shouldn't tell this. But a moment comes and we speak, words come out. And then later, "Kyun kaha maine nahi kehna chahiye tha?" That's true. That's an example of guilt. What else? Mm. 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 Eh,
I was saying that sometimes it could also be what's running in your mind, what you imagine about something or somebody that might not be even right. Or so then you reflect, oh, I should have not thought about this person like this, when you don't know. And that can linger in your mind and thought as a form of guilt.
I think the only thing that comes to mind right now is you have a sense of guilt when you're judgmental.
There is a Om Shanti. There is a certain habit which we should perform, and if we don't do it, we know that if we do it, it will be good for our mental and spiritual health. But if we don't do it, then we feel guilt. And an example is like the morning meditation. If I miss it, I always feel guilty about it, and I missed it today. So, Om Shanti. Thank you.
Yeah, keep yourself accountable.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And especially in spiritual life, we always have very high standards, right? Because you're saying we have to be very, full of all virtues, and right. So, but our starting point is not that. So there's always room for feeling guilty about it. So there's some other examples like forgetting someone's birthday, right? Or forgetting your mom's birthday, for example, you feel guilty about it. Eating chocolate cake when you are on a diet. And then later we feel guilty. Right? Or it says rushing through work that we were expected to work hard on. Right? Didn't get enough time. Then I feel guilty about it. Right? Right. Mm. Mm.
Somebody who is feeling guilty even after 30 years of losing his parents in an accident because of what he caused. What he caused. What he caused. That guilt never leaves you. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's did everyone hear on Zoom the example that sister gave? It's like it's someone's mistake, they had an accident and they lost their parents in it. It's a big guilt, right? Yeah, right. And that's what we call it. Like sometimes, like when guilt comes, like daily thing, I miss something, which is okay. But if guilt is such deeply ridden, we call it being guilt ridden. And that, there's some like not so good effects of that. So examples of being guilt ridden. Guilt appears to be particularly prevalent with depression. So I can actually go into a depressive state of mind. Elevated guilt leads to emotional over-involvement. Elevated guilt can make bereavement more complex and challenging. Right? So losing a loved one, right? And because I couldn't do what I could have done. Sometimes known as OCD guilt, this emotion is associated with obsessive compulsive disorder. Right? So if you really look into all these things, then we feel that guilt can actually be quite damaging, right? Another example of guilt is we say mom guilt. It's a very, right, mom guilt. So mothers feel I haven't done enough, or I could have done much more than what I'm doing, right? Right. Right. So what really is happening here is, I have set some standards for myself, and I feel if I'm not able to meet them, then all these feelings of guilt are coming. Right. Right. So if we look into why we make mistakes, because generally we feel guilty about making mistakes. So if we look into the psychology or the process of what leads us to make mistakes, then we might maybe understand this little bit better, right? So let us look into why we make mistakes. हम गलतियां क्यों करते हैं? So these are some of the main reasons why we make mistakes. First is ignorance or lack of information. Ignorance or lack of information. So I wasn't aware, and so I made a mistake. Right. Second is beliefs or prejudices. So I've had some strong beliefs, maybe when I was growing up, right. And so I have a strong prejudiced way of looking at life. So emotional immaturity, lack of experience. So I wasn't experienced enough, and so I made a mistake. External influences like pressures of society, friends, family, vibrations, even spirits, etc. It's like coming under the influence of an external thing. And then there are internal influences. We say negative inner forces, arrogance, anger, jealousy, attachment, lust, laziness, all these. This is the real reason why we make mistakes. And so, who is to blame when I have made a mistake? Myself. Always myself. 90%. Right. Mhm. Right. Sanskars of the soul from past many lives also. Right. And so, when something good happens, when we do something good, so what do we say? Who did it? Generally, what do we say? Who did it? Yes, we generally say, God.
I did it.
Yeah, generally all of us will say, Baba ne kiya, God ne, Paramatma ne karaya. तो अच्छा हुआ तो we say God did it. तो बुरा हुआ तो who did it? We did it.
Maya did it.
Free will, yes, right. But if we also look at all these factors, and then when we say that, when we disassociate ourselves, because what is the problem with guilt? What is the harm that guilt does? Can we solve the problem by being guilty about it? Okay, थोड़े समय के लिए तो ठीक है हमने किया. But actually the cycle of the guilt is, if I feel guilty, I'm not empowering myself, and then I'm more prone to making the same mistake again. That's what generally happens. It's like a cycle. And so when I know that if something wrong has happened, okay, my intentions may not be, wrong, but I came under the influence of maybe one of these factors. I can call it Maya or illusion. Right?
So the way I see mistake is something that you do when you don't know. And wrong is when you do, is when you know that what you're not supposed to do. Anger, jealousy, it's not good, right? So the guilt associated to a mistake versus wrong, the degree of impact might be significant versus, I can't say mistake is not insignificant, and it depends on the person. Like the example you said about that accident, no one would want to kill their parent, right? That was definitely a mistake, but that impact was still significant. A person who does intentionally wrong thing, who still goes and kill intentionally another soul, they might not even feel guilty, right? So I was just reflecting, it's complex, I guess. Yeah, it's complex of how you deal with it.
Right. That's why feeling guilty is actually a sign of that little bit elevated moral standards. Like, at least I'm feeling guilty that I shouldn't have said this or done this. Right. And so, we say, when we talk about ego, because guilt is ultimately linked with ego, right? Because if I feel, disheartened, it's the I of, we say, disheartenment. And that's also ego. That's not the true image, true form of who we are. And when the soul comes under the influence of Maya or the illusion, then the soul actually makes whatever mistakes the soul makes. So a way not to feel guilty is to disassociate myself from the action that was performed. And I tell myself, no, it was performed under some illusion. Right? And that's the truth also. At that time, we were not. So it's important to forgive myself so that I stop feeling heavy about it.
Can you repeat again, sir, please?
Yeah, so it's important not to, feel heavy about it and feel that whatever mistake happened, it was actually under the spell of an illusion. माया आ गई, माया ने कराया. जैसे हम अच्छा कुछ करते तो हम कहते परमात्मा ने कराया. तो बुरा भी है. So it's like the soul is a medium through which, if I'm connected to God in meditation, then good thing will happen. But if I'm not connected to God and I'm connected to some illusion, then that will also, make me perform wrong actions or wrong decisions, maybe, right? Mhm. And so, yes.
Came there so that आपको 360 ना देखना पड़े. Saurabh bhai, Om Shanti. What if through external influence we get a bad habit and we keep feeling guilty about it, but it became a habit? क्या करना है सौरभ भाई? Shanti.
Yeah, no, that's where we have to use spiritual knowledge and wisdom. That's where all what we are learning in our transformation about being soul conscious more and more. It's like creating a positive habit instead of that habit. Also, as we know, like we have, I think, discussed some time back about identifying the triggers, what triggers that habit, and letting go of that, going out of that trigger. That also helps, right? Because ultimately, negative habits don't come by themselves. There has to be a trigger that triggers, that particular thought pattern or a habit. So the more I pay attention on that trigger and also not feel guilty about it. Why? Because mistakes actually are good. And the reason why they are good is because if I have made a mistake, I'll be humble, first of all. I won't go on an ego trip that I'm perfect, right? And that also allows me to better understand where others are coming from, right? And also, making mistakes allow me to, be an example for others. Like if I've made a mistake, if I've learned my lesson, then that lesson could also inspire others. So in that way, I need to always not feel bad about a mistake, about failure. That's what they say, success versus failure. Who would you hire? A person who has always been successful or a person who has failed and then has come back? They say always a person who has failed and come back, because then they know, okay, if a person will meet a failure, how would they respond? Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes.
I'll give a scenario, and that's probably the best way for me to explain the question. Let's say there is a couple, and then and if the husband is not very supportive of the family and not financially supporting, and the wife is dependent on the husband's financial support to look after the family, if the wife has to choose to say white lies to be able to get financial support to support the family, knowing that what she's doing is wrong, but in her back of her mind, she knows that so many kids, her kids will benefit or whatever, okay? Because she's doing that probably knowing what she's doing is wrong, but the husband is making her to do that way because not doing the responsibilities. So that is if and but all the story. So is that a good guilt or a bad guilt? I guess is my question. I don't know. I mean,
right. What do you all think? It's a good question, right? Is it okay to have that guilt, or is it not healthy to have that guilt? If I have to tell a lie, but there's a genuine reason behind it. That's true. Many, of us feel guilty when we are saying a lie. But if it is for a particular reason, and then is it okay or no? Mhm.
Here, remember Saurabh bhai, you couple of weeks ago when we were here, we were like, when do you like, up to what point you should tolerate? That's what, when the situation becomes face it. I think this is the perfect scenario that you explained that I forgot to write. So if you have that, when the situation, it says it becomes a situation, face it, if relationship becomes then tolerated something. So I think it fits perfectly in that scenario. Just to draw a line when to, or how much to feel guilty, or are those lies okay? I don't think I clicked it down, but
Om Shanti, I think I would agree with Kajal when what she said, that yes, there should be a line until we accept it. If we start feeling that we are tolerating it and feeling guilty, then we should take the step. Otherwise, keeping guilty inside would make us emotionally drained. So, thank you. Om Shanti.
Right. Any other?
Yeah, Om Shanti.
Ji Sandeep bhai, yes.
See, so what I'm saying is, the Maya comes with a different, I mean, like in different attire. Like it is very difficult to recognize the Maya.
Mm.
So sometimes but always what happens, you recognize it after that particular incident happens. Like I don't know, like so maybe you're doing the same thing again, but because the Maya you couldn't recognize it because it came into different attire. So how to deal with such situation? That is where question.
Mhm. Right. How to recognize Maya? How to recognize that this is leading me towards a mistake, right? Mhm. Reflection, right? Mhm. Meditation. Yeah, I've always felt that if my stage is fluctuating inside, it means that there's it's like, influence of Maya. It's always the case.
Yeah, that's a good way to do. Yeah,
But if
always
I'm-
there will be some question. Yeah, definitely.
And one thing that I've felt is always when I have to make a decision, an important decision, to make it after I have had a good meditation experience, so that the mind is clear at that time. So I'm not coming under the influence of some emotion and then deciding. Or if I have to, for example, give an advice to someone, for example, also not to just react and then say, you should do this, because it generally backfires. But if I've actually, given some time and to prepare first my stage in meditation, and then automatically many times, 90% of the times, we won't even have to say much. Things will automatically get settled because it's all, subtle connections, right? But even I have to say or give an advice, it's important to first, get into that zone of silence, because then the real touching comes from the divine. This is what it should be like. And then I recognize, okay, this thought, maybe it was Maya's thought. It wasn't the reality, because we try to create stories. Maya creates a lot of stories. This person is like this is like that. This is not right, this is right. And then I'll come into the influence of all those stories.
Yeah, another way is like, sometimes, before I making any decision, I always ask myself like whether it is ethical or not. And even sometimes I may take wrong decision, but then that time, I try to give justification to the action what I'm going to take. So I think, maybe as you said, whenever you feel that fluctuated inside, that means, refrain yourself from making such decisions.
Making a decision at that time, especially, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Oh no, I was just what Nish said was I didn't understand why that person should feel guilty in supporting their family, because they didn't have the support of the other spouse, of the other partner anyways. So because of that action was taken. So the action was taken for a certain reason. So where is the guilt in something like this? I think one has to not feel guilty in a situation like that, because if that person was understanding enough, that person wouldn't be in that situation at all. So
That's a good point. So that brings us to a little video. And this video is about 7 things we shouldn't feel guilty for. So you want to watch the video? Okay. Okay, let's watch the video.
Have you ever felt guilty for doing things that made you happy, or felt ashamed about something but didn't understand why? While it's important to acknowledge when you've done something wrong and apologize for your mistakes, sometimes you can get stuck feeling guilty over something that you shouldn't. The psychological definition of guilt is a feeling of deserving blame, anger, or shame, often evoked when we consciously hurt others with our words, choices, or actions. Excessively feeling guilty and blaming ourselves for everything is an unhealthy attitude to have, and it often leads to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and perfectionism. And if you're not careful, it can worsen into patterns of overcompensating and overthinking, as well as high levels of stress and chronic emotional distress. With that said, here are 7 things that you shouldn't feel guilty about. Number 1, not being perfect. Do you often tear yourself down for making common mistakes or coming up short sometimes? As frustrating as it may feel, the truth is none of us are perfect, and we can't be good at everything we do, especially not the first few times we try something new. Albert Einstein put it best when he said, "A person who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new." When you beat yourself up over every little thing you do wrong, you initiate negative self-talk and devalue yourself. 2, asking for help. Another thing you should never feel bad about is asking for someone's help, especially when you really need it. Because no matter how hard you might try, you can't do everything alone. Nobody has all the answers in life, and nobody has it all figured out. There's no need to keep struggling in silence just because you're afraid of seeming like a burden to those around you. There's no need to feel guilty about reaching out to someone and asking for their help from time to time. It can be good to remind yourself that you're never truly alone in your struggle. 3, being successful. You should never have to apologize or feel guilty about achieving your own success. Accomplishments deserve to be celebrated, but some people may feel jealous or resentful towards you for being so successful and try to make you feel bad for it. Don't give them the satisfaction of getting to you. You shouldn't have to fail just to make other people more comfortable around you. You worked hard to make something of yourself, and you should be proud of it. You do deserve your success, and don't let other people take that pride away from you. 4, saying no when you need to. It's hard not to feel guilty when we can't give someone what they want from us. But there comes a time when we have to stand our ground and assert ourselves. Saying no to things you can't or don't want to do is a good practice in setting healthy boundaries for yourself. Otherwise, you might end up regretting your actions, hating yourself for it, and resenting the other people for ever putting you in that position. You deserve to be a priority in your own life. Your wants and needs shouldn't have to come second to everyone else's. Number 5, removing yourself from toxic situations or people. Do you have anyone in your life who has always come to you with their problems? Someone who's constantly trying to suck you into their needless drama? If you answered yes, then you've probably wanted to tell this person you're tired of listening to their dilemmas and tried to distance yourself from them at one time or another. And that's okay. Getting caught up in another person's drama can be emotionally exhausting. So you shouldn't have to apologize for wanting some peace of mind every once in a while. Number 6, ending toxic relationships. It can be difficult to accept that sometimes the people we love aren't good for us. But when you're in a relationship with a toxic person, whether that's a friend, family member, or significant other who mistreats you and exploits you, you owe it to yourself to cut ties with them. People like this are a negative influence in your life who will only bring you down and rob you of all of your happiness, motivation, and self-esteem if you give them the chance. By choosing to end your relationship with them, you're protecting your own mental health and emotional well-being. And number 7, wanting to be happy. Do you feel guilty for wanting to be happy, but don't know why? Do you find it hard to pursue the things that truly matter to you because of the judgment, negativity, and guilt tripping from the people around you? Whether it means chasing your dreams, being yourself, or taking care of your personal needs, you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to be happy. After all, nobody has the right to ask you to prioritize them over yourself or sacrifice all your hopes and aspirations for their sake. So, do you relate to any of these instances? Have you ever felt guilty about doing any of the things in the video? If you are someone who struggles with a lot of feelings of guilt and shame, it may be time to stop and ask yourself why you feel this way. There is no shame in wanting what's best for yourself, even if it sometimes comes at the expense of others' feelings or convenience. And there are certain things that you should never have to apologize or feel guilty for. Please like and share this video if it helped you and you think it could help someone else too.
Right.
Yeah. Om Shanti. So does anyone remember the third point? I missed to write it. After not being perfect, second is asking for help, and third one, koi bata do? Thank you.
Cutting yourself from the toxic people.
Cutting yourself from the toxic people, right? So, so yeah, the first one is, maybe it's good to revise, na? The first one is not being perfect. So I shouldn't feel guilty that I'm not perfect. Why? Yeah, they say we are imperfectly perfect. Yeah. And people who feel they are perfect are delusional. Good. Right? Because no one is perfect. Perfection is like an abstract thing, right? So good. So, क्या चीज? नहीं, only I know my imperfections, right? So I can never come under that, thought, of course, yeah. So yeah, but that's a big thing, so, even God doesn't want us to be perfect. Yeah, he wants us to learn and grow. And I mean, the thing is, that's what in spirituality, we learn. And then when we develop this relationship with God, it says that God loves me even though I'm not perfect. God values my effort, my sincerity in improving myself. He can see that I'm not standing still, but I am progressing. God sees my eternal being in form of purity. So eternally the soul is pure. That's my original eternal form and religion is purity. And so God only sees that. So he doesn't see anything else. So in that way, we are perfectly fine, right? Right, good. And what was the second one? The second one was asking for help, right? Not to feel guilty, to ask for help. That's also a big thing. We generally feel guilty. I have felt guilty many times asking for help. But you shouldn't feel guilty about, because it's also giving the other person opportunity to, contribute in some way, whatever they can, right? So, right. And the third one was being successful. You shouldn't feel guilty about being successful. Why? Mm.
Om Shanti. I think this is very important, and to be honest, for an Indian origin guy, I would say that, क्योंकि हमें यही लगता है कि हमारा ये लोग अच्छा कर रहे हैं, ये लोग अच्छा कर रहे हैं, and that at the end of the day we drain ourselves, and even the social media is contributing a lot these days. So and we feel guilty about it. That guy is so successful, he's doing so good, and we actually don't know what the actual picture is or what the true story is. But then we form a thought process and we feel kind of, yes, guilt is one, and we feel we are not doing anything. Then we go into that rat race, which I've done it personally in India, which I came out of it for sure when I joined spiritualism, but yeah, also after coming to US. So it's just my example, I know, but not rest of them.
Right. Right. And the fourth one was saying no when you need to, right? So it's important to say no also, right? And that's where we learn to say, when we learn the part of Hanji, we have to say yes, but it's also important to say no when, I think, was it last time when we watched that when I say yes to others, I make sure I don't say no to myself, right? Last week na ye baat chal rahi thi, right? Ji.
And the fourth point again is majorly big, used to be big for me, which I have to change. I used to say yes to everything, and then I used to fall into a ditch, to be honest. Guilt started. And I, like, even for projects or anything which I didn't know, I used to raise hands. But there is an boundary how much I can work. किसी भी चीज में हाँ बोल के फिर बाद में पछताना. So
yeah, that I also am facing the same problem. Like, many times I always say yes, and I try to, I mean, like, not please other, but like, I try to prove myself, kind of. I don't know what exactly word I can say, but every time, I'll and then I feel guilty, like, how to say no, and and like how and then many times it ends up taking wrong decisions.
And it's true for most of us, actually. We feel bad saying no to someone. So what's a good way to say no?
This does work for me. I don't shy away to say no. I don't struggle with that because for me, bottom line is that when someone comes to me, they're depending on to help, not that they're depending on me from my action. So my question goes back to, am I going to let them down or not? If I know from whatever capacity I cannot do, I'm going to tell why I won't be able to support, so that they understand, not because I don't want to do, but to say that once you explain, everyone have that ability to understand. So that most of the time has worked out for me. And And so that has not broken relationship. My managers have not got mad at me, or my colleagues have not got whatever. And even though sometimes I don't take on everything, I will say these are the few things I can contribute, which can help, but I'm not taking the entire responsibility because of XYZ. So yeah.
To explain the reason behind, okay, I'm not able to do because of this, right? Yes.
Shanti. So if we are giving explanation or explaining the reasoning behind no, that means deep down there's somewhere guilt, right? Of saying no. That's why we have to explain ourselves why we are saying no. Why do we have to explain ourselves? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah. The way I look at it, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. The way I look at it is that it's not about guilt. It's just helps to remove any doubts or any, because we human being, we are living in such a complex world. So if we really care about relationship and then how the person feels, it's okay to leave that little bit of an ego, why I have to explain, give reasons, and rather say, hey, here are the things, whether they ask or not, whatever that is, automatically any doubts just goes away. And I think for me, that's the reason. And I never felt, because I have a guilt in me, that if I don't give reasons, they're going to think this or that. My thinking is that people go through so many emotions when they come for a help. So when you explain genuinely, I think it helps them to not get frustrated or angry, whatever. That's the reason, I think.
Absolutely. I think I was just going to say it in a few different words, but that's exactly what it is. Because it's like, say, if I was to come to you for something, and if you were to flat out tell me no, it would I would question it. Why? But depending on the equation with the person, I think that's the other thing, right? You feel the need to at least explain why you're saying no. Maybe there's a total stranger is asking you for something, you might be able to easily say no and not explain. But with people, I think, you need to tell them why you're saying no. Definitely. Misunderstandings do crop up otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd also like to add to that is, so I think, you give a reason to say no, also to explain to yourself the honesty of the situation. If you honestly answer the reason why you're saying no, you're telling yourself and you're telling the other person. If the other person can accept it, that's great. But if by chance they cannot, at least you're not feeling guilty, because, you did the best you can in explaining the situation honestly. I mean, and, it's about keeping the relationship above your own thoughts.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes, like, saying no also saying no also helps the other person. Sanjit bhai, ऊपर ना batteries होगी. Yeah.
This is just looking at time. I'll be very quick. A good colleague of mine, who might have known for about.
Might be.
That's a heavy laptop. Is it Cummins? Oh, you're in technicals, obviously. You have given this big laptop. Okay. I was just going to say that this is a colleague of mine whom I have known in Dubai for a very long time. Not in touch, worked with very closely, whatever. And then suddenly contacted me on LinkedIn disappeared for many years and suddenly contacted and said, I need money from you because my sister is having cancer and fighting for it. And I know background story, whatever. Cut the long story short, right? I was about to send money, quite a large, like $2,000, $3,000 was what was his ask. But for some reason, something didn't add up to what he's told me, the story. I said, okay, I was about to transfer. And he said, oh, send it to direct cash, whatever, no bank account. I'm like, which world are we living where someone doesn't have a bank account? And that kind of broke me a little bit of doubts. And I also know a little bit of background of his story, was into drugs and all of that. So I spoke to my sister to give another thought process because I was emotionally getting carried away. Right. Because I don't want to contribute to something that he is capable of doing something wrong in this name of my own sister. And this was during Ramadan and he's Muslim. I was like, no, nobody would do something like that on a very, such a time. But I didn't do it, but I had to go back and give the answer that I'm not going to give you. And it was so hard to say no, because he was counting on me to give me that money. And with that emotional, ask, my sister is fighting for cancer. I don't have money to give treatment. And I have money in my account. And it's like you're fighting with conflicting, right? Yeah. So, but then I had to say, if I can support you, but the one way I could do this is that go to GoFundMe. And he disappeared after that because he doesn't want to. And then I validated with some of my friends, like, glad you didn't do it because so-and-so. But I gave him the reasons why I can't. But I also gave him another solution, which he didn't want to do. So sometimes you have forced to say no, even for things like this.
If you gave him the solution and gave him the reason, that's perfect reason not to feel rich.
Yeah, true. And I'm just saying that those are sometimes you have to say no. Yes, it was really hard for me. But I think the solution that we put. It was not my idea. It was not my friend. Because I felt so wrong that I had to let the person know.
Right. Learn to value ourselves. True. Right. Sometimes if like I'm in the need of some help, for example, if the person has said yes, but they are not able to do it, I would say, pehle hi na bol dete, hum kisi aur ko puchte. For example, so it's actually good to be honest and say, whatever is, and there's no hard feelings about it. So fifth, what is the fifth? It says, removing yourself from toxic situations. That's also important, like the example you were sharing. So we shouldn't be guilty about ending a relationship or something which is not healthy for the soul. And what was the next one? Yeah, right. Wanting to be happy, right? Yeah. I shouldn't feel guilty about wanting to be happy. Sometimes I feel guilty. I'll just say that whenever I'm happy or I would like to have a good meal, and then I'll feel guilty. Oh, why did I eat so much? So that is another guilt. Right. Right. There's another example of guilt, and we call it, let's say, and maybe a few mothers can talk about it as well. There is a little slide on that. We call it mom guilt, mom's guilt. And that's true for, so what does it say? Mama, you're going to struggle. There will be days that you aren't the best mom, and as soon as the kids go to sleep, your brain fills with mom guilt. Don't give in. You're allowed to have bad days. Those days do not define you. they would like to also open up. Any mother would like to share? And
Shanti. Both the kids didn't come home and I just left. I'm like, oh, they'll be coming home. They'll be hungry. I mean, I know they're older kids, but we still have that mom guilt, you know, oh, they'll come home. They'll be hungry. I just left. I didn't even think about them. It's dinner time. There's no dinner on the table. It's always something, but you have to choose what makes you happy.
That, you know, the point she made, it's very real in all of our lives, right? Like, so you have to choose. It's almost like you have to make a choice of your own happiness versus guilt towards your children or your family, or there's, because when you're choosing or to do something for your own happiness, it could be at the cost of the time that you could have given your family. So that guilt is very real. I mean, and I don't know how to deal with it.
anyone wants to share any other thoughts on this mom guilt? But that's a valid point, na? तो क्या समझते हैं? What does everyone think? Right? Mhm. Those on Zoom can also chime in if you feel like. Yeah. Mhm. Generally, we give the example of the aeroplane, right? That's what we say. If the pressure is low, then the masks will drop down, but be sure first put your mask before helping the child. Because if I am not happy inside, I cannot be of any help to my child or anybody else. Because then I'll be more, reactive and more judgmental, and and these days actually kids tell parents, like my sister tells me, whenever she is little upset, they'll say, oh, mom, time for meditation. Om Shanti. Go and meditate. Kids are very smart these days. Yeah.
I'm not a mother. I just have suggestion for the mothers who are feeling guilty is that think about it like now you're here. You sacrificed you're not unable to make dinner for your kids. A very genuine feeling. I could understand because I have a cat. Sometimes I feel so bad to leave him alone. And because he's so depending person or guy, whatever. So, but the lessons learned, that the kind of the atmosphere we are sharing here, this is a message or ideas or whatever you're going to take back with you, and that you're going to apply that for next few days, few months, whatever. And that's the benefit of, I mean, I think sometimes it's good to reflect, what are the benefit am I getting? What is the trade-off? Right? So like you were saying, and once you put that in your mind, yes, I'm sacrificing my family time for this, even meeting a friend for coffee. Yeah, even meeting for coffee for a friend with a friend instead of spending a night with your kids, but you're making that friend happy. You're being happy. So it's an emotion you are exchanging, and you will talk about it. Yeah, I spent this time, we talked about it. So I think the moment we kind of reflect what's the benefit we are getting and we are giving might help us to replace that sense of guilt for that moment, I think.
I think we've all believed in that. I mean, some of us ladies have believed in that when we kind of go out with each other, we feel more refreshed. We have an exchange of ideas, and definitely we're more productive at home a lot of times because we bounce off of each other. I think, I don't know if it's guilt that I feel, but my biggest thing when it comes to my kid is what kind of sanskar have I given him? I think, I don't know, that's somewhere there's one small guilt portion because I feel I don't know if I've done it right. That question is always there. Have I done it right? So that is associated with a small bit of guilt because I know not everything that I feel and say or do is right. So that is my bigger struggle here. That's my mom's struggle.
Mhm. Any other thoughts on this? Mm. 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 Right. Anyone else wants to share anything else on this topic? By the way, I would like to also thank Teju Ben. She found the video for us tonight. So, yeah, she got a video, right? Yeah. Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's from YouTube. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I can send the link too. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Mhm. Great. Ciao. Any other thoughts from other angels who have joined us?
ओम शांति सौरभ भाई।
Shanti, Naresh bhai, welcome. Mhm.
अभी तो हम लोग ट्रेन में हैं।
अच्छा।
हाँ, तो ट्रेन में मिल गया था ड्राइवर। तो ये जो आज का टॉपिक तो बहुत अच्छा है और हर एक की लाइफ में आता है। इसमें सिर्फ एक चीज समझ में आती है कि भक्ति में बताते हैं पुराणों में, जब भगवान आए, भगवान को भी आना पड़ा, दिखाते हैं, लेकिन वो भी सबको संतुष्ट नहीं कर पाए। कुछ लोग उनको भी कमी निकालते रहे, उनकी बुराई करते रहे। तो हम तो एक साधारण इंसान है। तो पहली बात तो यह है कि हम ये भूल जाएं कि हम सबको संतुष्ट कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि हमको तभी गिल्ट लगता है कि हम किसी को संतुष्ट नहीं कर पाते। और दूसरा है कि जो हमारे अपने हैं, जो हमको अपना समझते हैं, उनको जस्टिफाई करने की जरूरत नहीं है हमको, कि वो तो अपना समझते ही हैं। और जो जो नहीं समझते हैं उनको कितना जस्टिफाई करें वो नहीं समझेंगे हम। तो जस्टिफाई करने से कोई फायदा नहीं है। और अपने आप में मतलब अपराध बोध या गिल्ट रखने की भी नहीं है, क्योंकि कोई भी 100% सबको संतुष्ट नहीं कर सकता। इवन बाबा ने भी कहा है कि संतुष्ट करो, 5% की छूट बाबा ने दी है। क्या 5% भी आपसे संतुष्ट नहीं है तो मैं आपको उसको ग्रेस मार्क दे दूंगा 5%। हाँ, हमको ऐसा काम संतुष्ट करना है अपने मन को, हमको कि हमको कोई ऐसा काम ना करे कि हमारा अपना ही मन हमको कचोटे कि हमने काम गलत किया। जो हम अच्छा कर सकते हैं वो हम करें, और जो मदद मांगने आया है वो भी हमारा अपना ही है। अगर वो हमारी मजबूरियों को समझता है तो हमारी ना कहने को भी बुरा नहीं मानेगा। वो हो सकता है उस टाइम बुरा मान जाए, लेकिन कुछ समय बाद वो अपने आप समझ जाएगा कि नहीं नहीं, वो उस कंडीशन में नहीं था, वो नहीं कर पाया, और फिर सिचुएशन नॉर्मल हो जाएगी। मतलब ये मेरा छोटा सा अपना। ओम शांति। थैंक यू सुरभ भाई, थैंक यू फैमिली।
Om Shanti. Thank you, Naresh bhai. So I'll try to, because Naresh bhai is our story man. We love to hear his stories. So God came on earth. Please, आप लोग भी help कर दीजिएगा. And yeah, and he figured out that even he was not perfect, and people. Like everybody was coming to him asking for help, and he was trying his best, but he was not perfect is one. Then आगे का बोल दिया.
हाँ नहीं हाँ. Yeah, basically he was just saying that like we generally try to please and satisfy others, but we're not always able to. And so, he said like we should have this rule 95%, 5%. It's like even if we are able to satisfy 95%, that's good enough. And we should really target at satisfying our own mind rather than others, because sooner or later others will realize the situation that we are in. And just like God, even people would, say bad things about God also. Like even now, people don't believe in God, but God doesn't feel guilty about it. So in the same way, we are just human beings, then why should we feel guilty about it? So no, thanks for sharing that. Very nice.
Yeah, one more thing which I would
Ji.
like to share here.
Ji.
See, most of the times what happens is now why we get the guilt consciousness, because many times we keep doing waste things, and then the result of those waste things are like some mistakes, and that's where you get guilt consciousness. So if you refrain yourself from doing those waste, or if you reduce the waste or you stop wasting the things, I mean, like waste thoughts, waste words, actions, everything, then probably that feeling will go away. I mean, like there is less chance of getting that feeling to you.
Very nice. True. And welcome Sandeep Bhai. It's first time he's joining Thursday session. So welcome Sandeep Bhai.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Other thoughts from anyone else wants to add? Ciao. So maybe we'll end with a little quote, and it's just a one-line quote, and I really loved it. It says, "You're not built for guilt." It says you're not built for guilt. So no need to feel guilty about anything. अच्छा, everyone is doing well. सभी hello कर सकते हैं. अर्चना बहन, बिंदु बहन, हर्ष भाई, जपनीत बहन, पायल बहन, पूर्णिमा बहन, रंजीत बहन, रेखा बहन, Sanita bहन, Suparna bहन, and a few others as well. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for the
Om
session.
Shanti, everyone. Thank you.
Om Shanti, everyone.
Om Shanti.
Thank you. Baki, if anyone has any suggestions for topics, let us know. Thursdays, we generally try to keep it open-ended and something that we can connect to together. Jay.
We are not able to hear.
Oh, okay.
Om Shanti. I just had a request, and I said, sometimes Saurabhai ends Thursday sessions with a short meditation. And of course, today, since we are probably out of time, we won't be able to do that. But my request is if you are able to record your own, talk us through different topics of meditation and probably post it on the group, that would help. I mean, if possible.
Okay. Okay, can I add? Om Shanti. So there is a power boost meditation which Saurabh contributes on every Wednesday. It's lovely. I'll share it. I have the complete playlist of those, and it's on the specific topics. So, and I never miss that meditation. So I think that, yeah. So I'll share that. Saurabh, chalega?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We should integrate more of that. But आप भेज सकते हैं संजीव भाई. Thank you. Great. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Baba. Om Shanti. Have a nice rest of the evening.